Greetings and welcome to episode 5 of XEP's Creator Talk exclusive to Tier 2 and 3 patrons of the Xbox Expansion Pass. Today, I am joined by one of the most positive and insightful people in the gaming community, a man whose experience takes him in the podcasting space to the written space and beyond, host of Xbox Chaturdays, Mr. Miles Dompier. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Luke. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm excited to sit down and chat with you. You kind of made me sound a little bit cooler than I am for the intro, but I do appreciate it. I do appreciate the love.
Not too long ago, I had on Lord Cog, and nobody does an intro like that man right there. Have you
Oh,
ever heard
he's the hype beast. He is the hype beast.
Yeah, it is that good. And so I always take a few notes ahead of time because I like Creator Talk to be from the hip. Like I don't map out too far what we're going to chat. I get like pillars, but when it comes to the intro, I feel like I got to do something to kind of, bring him in there on some level because it's just that good. So, Miles, tell me about Xbox Saturdays. Tell me a little bit about that before we start.
Yes. So if you are unaware, I host a little show called Xbox Chaturdays, which is a live podcast that we do every week on Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. It is myself and a random assortment of illustrious video game industry guests. I've had awesome folks like Paris Lilly, Greg Miller, Jeff Grubb, Joe Neat of Sea of Thieves. I've had an eclectic mix, and really the focus of the show is sitting down every week and it is Xbox focused, but talking about video games, the industry, how news and developments, how what's happening in the gaming world impacts the games that we play and the games we'll play in the future. So very grateful for the show where we just hit episode 100 a few weeks back. So I've been doing that for a few years. Recently transitioned that to my own channel. It was part of Windows Central. Now it is on youtube.com/Miles Dompier. So I'm excited to have my own little nugget. It was really cool to see Ravenlock put out a little, the flair post about, here's what critics say about Ravenlock. And it was awesome to see Xbox Chaturdays, that little name on the banner there, because I've had quotes from Windows Central and other outlets featured on box art and that sort of thing a lot, but it was cool to have something tied directly to me on there as well. So
that is cool, man. That's a super cool, just like little nugget that you get to keep in the back of your hat. That's awesome. If you're a listener of XEP and not one of Miles, I will say that the two shows favor very closely. I think you and I both really work hard to spotlight kind of the positive aspects of gaming, but while we're focused on kind of one platform, we look at kind of the breadth of news and how it impacts that platform. So I would argue that if anybody listening to XP doesn't know Miles and doesn't know you, they would feel right at home in your community.
Yeah,
sure.
you've been on my show several times. So yeah, you and I get along great. We share similar outlooks. And again, I host an Xbox centric show, but the Xbox Chaturdays Discord has dedicated channels for Nintendo, PlayStation, PC, because, as much as I like Xbox, that's, I don't only like Xbox. I've been playing video games since Super Nintendo. So I've been along for the ride. I've seen the ebbs and flows of all of the different platform holders. So yeah, that's something I always champion on the show. As much as some Xbox fans don't want to hear me rant about Tears of the Kingdom, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it on the Xbox show. And that's just the way it's going to be for me.
The first 8 minutes of the most recent XEP were Logan talking about Tears of the Kingdom because it's one of those tentpole moments. Like there are some games that transcend platform, whether they're exclusive or not. Like everybody's going to talk about this game, that game. And the latest Zelda is always going to be one of those conversation pieces.
Yeah, you can't really, even if you're a platform-centric show, you can't really talk about the games industry or how Xbox relates to the rest of video game development and ignore a title like Tears of the Kingdom. It's not very fair to the conversation, in my opinion.
I feel like God of War kind of had that effect. I think the Last of Us TV show had that effect.
Yeah, just the big pop culture moments where it elevates the entire industry. When those big successes happen, Elden Ring, Tears of the Kingdom, God of War, Ragnarok, when those moments happen, it makes the industry stronger, it makes the industry better, and it makes these companies more willing to spend money, which is, at the end of the day, they want to make money. But if we can convince them that, hey, you should invest money to give us better games, then it's, that's the win-win we're all hoping for as we look towards where this industry is going.
You brought up some big ones when you bring up like Elden Ring and such, and I Elden Ring was special. That was my first FromSoft game that I cared to play. And 186 hours, I think, is what
Oh
my
man.
total time was. That was a journey, man. I had some tough spots, but I really enjoyed it. I caught that magic, that fire.
It's
You know?
playthrough 1 for me was probably about 125 hours, and I've done 3 playthroughs so far. So I'm, I'm in it. I love me some FromSoft. This wasn't my first From Software journey, but going into that game, I had high expectations, and somehow From Software exceeded all of my wildest expectations for this game, and that's something that's very rare. It was the first time in a very long time where on the other side of a game I was sad. I was bummed that it was over. There was no more Elden Ring to experience. I'd done it all, and it was the first time in a very long time where I just felt genuinely down after beating a video game. It was weird.
I can think of a couple times, rarely, Metal Gear Solid, Arkham, any of the Arkham games. Those are just because I love Batman as well. But maybe the first God of War and Breath of the Wild. Those were games where I was sad when it was done.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm dragging my Jedi experience out right now, intentionally not going to the final planet because there's so much. That game is huge. And I'm loving being in such an immersive Star Wars experience. So I'm kind of holding off finishing that one right now.
Just savoring it. You got to
Mm-hmm.
savor that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Miles, do you think Starfield's going to be this for everybody? Like, we're talking about these tentpole titles. Redfall missed it. You think Starfield's going to do it?
Starfield hopefully will. If there's one thing Bethesda has done well in the past is they know how to make immersive open world RPGs. They've done it
Mm-hmm.
with Fallout, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a new IP, but their take on it with Fallout 3 was transformative, completely different than the previous iterations. Elder Scrolls Morrowind, that was my first introduction to that formula, and I had never played anything like it. And then with each entry they've evolved at, Oblivion, and then Skyrim was the moment where they became a household name.
Mm-hmm.
They were popular, they had a cult following for a long time, but Skyrim was the game that just put them on the map. Everyone was looking at Bethesda, everyone recognized what was special about Bethesda. So there is potential for that with Skyrim. Obviously, it's been a long time between Fallout 4, between Skyrim. They've
Mm-hmm.
had years and years to work on this project. It seems like they're most ambitious in terms of scope and scale and features. So there's a lot of hope and potential for Starfield to really hit and be that moment. And considering the legacy of Bethesda, it will be very strange if Starfield isn't that moment. And if Starfield fumbles out of the gate, it'll be it'll be hard for me to believe that Starfield doesn't land in some way for a large audience, because both Skyrim and Fallout 4 were
Mm-hmm.
huge releases. So I have to imagine Starfield is going to be unquestionably one of the biggest releases of 2023.
I don't know how it couldn't be, but I'm also very wary in the wake of Redfall, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed Redfall, but I critically very much agree with all of the frustrations people had. Like, I saw reviews from ranging anything between a 5 and a 7. I was like, yep, I get it. I get
Yep.
it. Anything better than 7, I was like, I don't know that you're being objective. Anything lower, I was like, that feels a little harsh. But I enjoyed Redfall, but it really did feel like a miss for Arcane, which I wasn't expecting. Right.
It was a shocking miss. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I've put in 30 hours in Redfall, so I'm not going to tell you I don't
Same.
like the
Yeah.
game. There are elements of it that I appreciate, that I really connect with, but I will say, I did a like 40-ish minute video of my impressions, thoughts about when I was 20-ish hours into the game.
YouTube.com/Miles Dompier.
Yeah, you can find them there. And I'm not, I don't regret anything I said, but my criticism of the game was harsh, because
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you this game makes a horrible first impression. You
It
boot it
does.
up and it doesn't look that great. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel great to play. The RPG systems and gunplay and loot doesn't go anywhere within the first 5 hours. You've really
Mm-hmm.
kind of peaked in terms of that loop. There are
Mm-hmm.
narrative beats that keep things interesting, and it was this roller coaster of highs and lows where I would do a really engaging, interesting quest, and I would say, yes, all right, I'm excited. This feels like an Arcane experience. That narrative I wanted with the big evil pharma company overlord and the vampires and how that ties into the universe. I was getting bits and pieces of that. And then I would go out into the open world and do some safe house stuff and just be kind of bored to tears, paint by numbers, open world, and in the worst kind of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I was shocked. I was very shocked by how Redfall released. And considering this was the first $70 Xbox AAA exclusive, I
Right.
was, a lot of us, I think, were like taken aback by the fact that Microsoft said, "Yeah, that's cool. We're gonna do that. We're gonna put that on us. We're gonna put that on Arcane." Considering I can't imagine that they didn't know where this game was going to land. I know Phil Spencer mentioned their internal review process, and he said it scored double digits lower than where they were expecting. But even at
Mm-hmm.
the time, that meant that they were anticipating the low 70s for their own internal metrics for Redfall. And I said, "You're going to charge $70 for what you would consider a 7 out of 10 game?"
Mm-hmm.
So I thought
Yeah,
it was a weird release. It was a disappointing moment. And it, again, puts a lot of pressure on Starfield.
a lot of unnecessary pressure on Starfield because we talk about unforced errors a lot, I think, in the Xbox community. And when I looked at Redfall, because I very similar experience to you in terms of time played, and a lot of my thoughts are very similar. I really would have been fine if they'd made this a $30 game and it had been marketed and spit out to us in the way that, hey, this is a Far Cry Light with some horror elements to it. We're going to keep expanding on it. It's $30. Check it out if you're interested. Game Pass. I would have been fine with that, but to make it the first kind of $70 top tier experience really surprised me, because everything else in this generation for Xbox has been at that $60 mark. And this is the first one we've seen Xbox miss on. And I include Bethesda in Xbox now. If we're going to give them highs, we must give them lows and vice versa. In this generation, we've seen some pretty solid games. I mean, no God of War level games unless you count Forza, which Forza is
Forza,
well earned.
just Horizon continues to be the golden child of the
Mhm.
Xbox brand right now.
Yeah, but you look, Halo Infinite, Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment. Goodness gracious, there's more. They've done some good releases in this one. That Minecraft Legends, all good. You know what I mean? 7 to 8 territory on your probably your Metacritic scale or whatnot. And I'm fine with those when we know what they are. It was Redfall that felt disingenuous. That's the one that caught me off guard. And I'm wearing my Crackdown 3 jacket because I really like Crackdown 3, but that very, very, to me, is a very similar path, right? Like a lot of expectations doesn't deliver. You get a fun experience if you can separate yourself, but it doesn't quite get there.
Exactly. A lot of people ragged on Crackdown 3 for being an Xbox project that took way too long to develop, did
Mm-hmm.
not deliver on its promises, felt like a lower budget game in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the final product,
Mm-hmm.
didn't review all that well. I mean, it reviewed okay. Again, another
Okay.
game I enjoy, just a
Right.
dumb open world game. Like
Yep.
I can have
Turn your
fun with
brain off.
those.
Yep.
But then you have to think about where Xbox is in its, I know it's trying to be everywhere. It's trying to bring games to players on all devices to get people to sign up for Xbox Game Pass. All of those things are novel. But then you have an actual legitimate business designed around selling consoles as well. So imagine a person who bought into the Redfall marketing hype, who was like, the game looks dope. This looks
Mm-hmm.
exactly like what I want to play. They spend $500 on a Series X. They don't have Game Pass yet. They're dipping their toes into the Xbox ecosystem. They spend $70 on a game. They spend
Right.
$600 plus tax
To
to play
dive
this
in.
game, and then this is their introduction to the Xbox ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes! That's like if
That's
that's
not
your
the impression.
if exactly if and that I'm not saying that's a huge percentage of people because it probably isn't. This
Mm-hmm.
game I don't think was ever positioned to be a console seller for them, but
Mm-hmm.
also it was one of the tentpole games that they decided they were going to charge $70 for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's strange. It's a strange decision because I think if this game wasn't tied to Xbox first party and this
Mm-hmm.
game wasn't $70, I do wonder what the reception would be. Clearly, there are fundamental problems with the game. There's
Mm-hmm.
no denying that. I don't fault a single person who gives this game a 6 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are people who I feel like, because of those expectations, because of the marketing beats, because of the promise of next gen and $70
Mm-hmm.
video games,
First
that makes
party. Just calling it first
yeah,
party.
that makes whether it's fair or not, I think that makes the criticism inherently harsher. Forspoken suffered the same fate because it was a $70 exclusive on PlayStation 5. People ripped it apart. And again, I remember playing that game. I was playing it during the review period. And there were problems. I knew people weren't going to like the dialogue. But then when I saw the reviews, I was a little taken aback because there were so many great things. The magic system was incredible. The parkour system was incredible. It was flashy as hell. There was a lot of, production to some moments of the game. And then that game was ripped apart. Again, some of it is the console war BS, but I think a lot of it is that expectation of a $70 exclusive tied to one of the big three. Anytime that happens, there's all this weight and energy. And then you have Redfall, and then you have Tears of the Kingdom right after, where people are like, oh man, Nintendo's charging $70. They don't even have a new system. I'm not going to do it. But we're going to see sales figures that prove that people, if you put out an excellent game, aren't going to bat an eye at $70. They're going to throw it at you. And again,
they're not going to bat an eye at 30 frames per second. They're not going to bat an eye at a lot of things if they're given a quality product.
Yeah, because Redfall, I know I see people in the Xbox camp say, oh man, people are, giving Zelda a pass or whatever. I'm sorry. If Redfall was 8K, 120 FPS, it wouldn't be as good as Tears of the Kingdom. There's a fundamental difference in design philosophy. And when we boil the conversation down to just frame rate and just resolution, that is the most boring way possible to talk about a video game. I'm sorry. 60 FPS is better 100% of the time. If I could play Tears of the Kingdom at 4K, 60 FPS, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would go wherever I could to do it. I know there's PC emulation and ways to do it right now,
Sure.
Not legal ways, but there are ways to do it right now. But that inherently doesn't make a game good. 60 FPS will not make a bad game good.
It's just like teraflops doesn't make a system better. It's a matter of how you play it. And that was one of the, to me, my core pillar thought was marketing for this episode. But I think about how so many things are marketed to gamers that affects their reception to it. Nobody was touting frame rate. Nobody was touting certain elements for Tears of the Kingdom.
No, they don't. Nintendo doesn't talk about technical specs at all because they know that's not their strong suit. But play Xbox in particular, banging that drum. World's most powerful console, baby. If you 120 FPS, 4K, they're all day they're banging that drum. So when they don't deliver on that for a first party game, I don't know what they expect from the community. Like I don't.
Nor do I. And I think about some of the technical games. Like if you're going to bang the first party world's most powerful console drum, you need to have games that showcase that. I can think Sea of Thieves and Gears 5 both have really impressive tech that is on display. Some Sea of Thieves, I think, has an easier job because it's stylized, but anyone that knows about how they run the water and how they manage that world is pretty darn impressive. Gears managed to take an Xbox One game and crank it to 11 in terms of visuals and frames per second. You could do 120, I believe, on a Series X. Don't quote me on that, but quote me on that. I think I'm confident.
Is that might be right on Series X?
At Series X, I think it is.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that there's a 120 mode for Gears 5.
And that's a showcase piece there. But Gears isn't, new. That's not the new hotness to anybody, even though I adore it. And then you've got Forza. And Forza Horizon 5 looks beautiful, runs fantastically. But I'm really anxious to see how these untethered by last gen exclusives now are. And unfortunately, Redfall feels like the first foray into this Xbox variant that we're seeing, because you had Deathloop and Ghostwire show up on PlayStation first, which by no means do I care. That doesn't bother or affect me. I'm thoroughly loving Ghostwire. That's a fun game that I like a lot. I haven't checked out Deathloop. I keep saying I'm going to, but I don't. But now that I played Redfall, I know everything Arcane has to offer. So what's the problem, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, again, much like a lot of the conversation, there's unfair weight, I think, put on exclusivity. And there's this ideal for a contingent of people that exclusives are better. And sometimes they can be, but almost never does exclusivity inherently guarantee that a game is going to be better than another. Sure, they can get additional resources. Sure, you hope the publisher, because it's an exclusive, does everything in their power to make sure that the game ships in the best possible state and is an unquestionable hit. and then there's Redfall.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, what's going on here? Why was this
Right.
Series X and S only? Because it's not graphically intensive. It's looks like Dishonored. And again,
Mm-hmm.
the graphics aren't everything. This isn't to downplay the work. I thought the art
Mm-hmm.
style was impressive. I thought there was impressive elements to it.
Good atmosphere. I like
Yeah.
the atmosphere a lot. And the sound design. Really like the sound. I vibed with those like guitar riffs and whatnot.
The soundtrack owned. It was so good. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of elements that are good, but like that didn't feel like a game that was only possible in Series X and S.
It didn't feel like a premium experience. And
They blew the CG budget on the trailers. There was
mm-hmm,
no in-engine cutscenes. It was just weird
mm-hmm.
slideshows. So it just lacked an overall sense of polish, I think, and production, which was disappointing when you're slapping that $70 sticker on it.
Yeah, big time. And that's a real bummer. And it's funny because I think back to conversations that I had leading up to it. I'm like, where are the commercials? Where's the marketing? And then in hindsight, it's very clear that they knew this wasn't the hit. But if they knew this wasn't the hit, why was it released in the state that it was? Why not do an early access? Why not find a way to get this around Halloween? There's a lot of ways. Make a wish, brother. Make a wish. There it is. There it is. But yeah, I look to Microsoft's approach to games, and I've said this on Cast Co-op, I've said this on previous XEPs, maybe even Creator Talks. It's that Xbox now is no longer focused on that premium single experience, that one game. They are a quantity over quality product right now, whether they intended to be or not, whether they want to be or not. They are. Game Pass offers an incredible variety for everybody to check out all different types of games, first and third party. And I'll still swear by that, right? Like Series S Game Pass is a way to go if you're a casual gamer. They may not be one single experience, but they offer you a lot. Counterpoint, Sony does a great job at giving you that. If you really love Spider-Man or superheroes, that's your jam. If you really want something special, try God of War, try Ghost of Tsushima, Zelda over on the Switch, plus portability. Like each one's got their thing, whether it's intended or not. I don't know that Xbox ever wanted to be in the camp of quantity over quality, but I would argue for me and the type of gamer I am, I enjoy swimming in sevens because a lot of those third party. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Those third party experiences offer some top tier, like Jedi. I can play Jedi on PlayStation or Xbox. So there's benefits and drawbacks. But they've yet to prove in 2 generations that they can get that 90 plus Metacritic, that mystical God of War. Yeah. That one like flying backwards kind of thing. I still love it and I'm still happy with it. I still am glad I have an Xbox and Game Pass, but I can't argue or dispute a lot of the counterpoints to it as well.
I think we have seen what's happening in terms of that quantity over quality statement, because when Game Pass launched, there was a lot of growth, really fast, rapid growth, because the idea is incredible. It's an incredible value. We've seen a lot of other subscription services do it in the movie space, in the music space. So it made sense from a gaming perspective for somebody to come in and shake up how we engage with that. And there are people who, aren't going to spend $70 on a game every month. And for them, that is a great option. It keeps them playing, keeps them engaged. But then it got to a point where the growth rapidly slowed down. It's still growing. It's still doing well, but like comparing it to Disney Plus, where you have that legacy library of not only existing amazing experiences, but they continue to invest in big budget experiences that keep people engaged, and their growth just continued to skyrocket. And with Xbox, they've done a good job for people like you and me who are invested in the Xbox ecosystem, who are subscribed to Game Pass. If you're already there, I think there is a healthy, steady flow of content that has kept me happy.
No reason to leave.
Every single month, I look at the list and say, cool, I was excited about that. I was excited about that. I will play these games on Game Pass. That is cool. But when it comes to growth, when it comes to bringing in new people into the ecosystem, you have to have those tentpole games. You really do. And Phil Spencer knows that. The Xbox leadership team understands that. They've just been in this weird limbo where they didn't have that for a long time. They're investing in that actively, but we know that takes 5-6 plus years to be able to deliver a game like Tears of the Kingdom uses the same map essentially as Breath of the Wild, a lot of the same aspects of Breath of the Wild. That game still took 6 years. That still took a long time to make that game. So when you're building something more ambitious than that, or as ambitious as that with new tech from the ground up, it's not going to be done in 3 years. And
Mhm.
unfortunately for Xbox, there's this demand from the community and demand from critics for them to deliver great games now, right now. You have to give me
Mhm.
great games right now, and they just haven't had them. So hopefully, as we look into the rest of this year, we start to see a better picture of the stuff that they've previously announced, and they can hopefully start delivering on those promises. Because as we've seen this year with Redfall and the noise surrounding ABK, even the core fandom is tired
Mhm.
of the okay, we're working on it. We're gonna get there. We promise. Just hang in there. Even the most diehard Xbox fans this year are like, dude, come on. My patience
Right.
is running out. Nintendo is crushing it. PlayStation is crushing it. You are the only one in a lot of ways when it comes to the game department not crushing it right now. And you should be, since you have, as Phil Spencer said in that Kind of Funny XCast interview, Microsoft has more resources than really anyone.
Mhm.
More than Nintendo, for sure. Way more resources than Nintendo.
Big
So
time.
there's again, just from a very basic optics perspective,
Mhm.
there's fun theoretically no reason why Microsoft can't be delivering games on the same caliber as PlayStation and
Totally
Nintendo.
agree. Do you expect, and this is our closing question here, you and I both really enjoy the ecosystem. No reason to leave is kind of the element. I'm quite happy with a lot of things, but frustrated with the lack of that one big game, right thing. Uh, do you think people are going to start leaving the Xbox community?
I don't think in droves by any means. I
Mhm.
will say, and this is very anecdotally, but the Xbox Chaturdays Discord has a very passionate group of Xbox fans. And
Mhm.
there have been people in the Xbox Chaturdays Discord who have said, you know what, I'm done waiting around for Xbox and I'm
Mhm.
going to start investing more in PlayStation. And
Mhm.
I've had a few people talk about PlayStation being their main platform. They
Mhm.
just were so burnt by waiting for Xbox that they've given up hope. I don't
Mhm.
think that's like a huge percentage, but I do know people who are genuinely frustrated with Xbox. And this isn't like a fanboy
Right,
console
not
war
an
perspective. This
inflammatory.
is a person who plays on their Xbox every single day. And
Mhm.
but that's their only platform. And I feel for those people because there
Mhm.
are people where Xbox is the only platform they have, and if that's all you have right now, in some ways, they're not really delivering enough. For me, I have the Switch, I have a PS5, I have a PC. So when one person isn't giving me a game that I want to play, I'm just somewhere else. Like I'm just
Right.
bouncing around between where the great experiences are. But I understand that that is expensive. Video games are an expensive hobby. And I know some people use that as a justification to be like, sorry, games are expensive, deal with it. That's not really where I fall. So I do feel for the people who only have one platform, and especially when that platform isn't giving them what they want. Like if you only have an Xbox and you're a JRPG fan, oof,
Yeah.
it ain't looking good. It
Yep.
ain't looking good for you, and that sucks.
It does. It does. Well, I don't want to end on a frustrating note because I know we both have a lot of appreciation for a lot of the things that Microsoft does well. Uh, let's end on some things that they have been doing well, and I would kind of continue with that quantity element. There's a lot to choose from right there. I really appreciate the way they're doing some the controller aspects. They're bringing in family plans. There is a lot to look forward to as well. Uh, for me when I think about our Xbox community. Is there any kind of closing thought you've got before we round out here?
Yeah, absolutely. So as much as I'm engaged with the conversations every day, so I talk about the good, I talk about the bad, and again how it relates to the games industry. I will say one of the things that has been exciting about Xbox and continues to be exciting about Xbox is the prospects of the future. I've still never been more excited about what's to come from Xbox Game Studios,
Mhm.
and there are games and studios and teams that I am very excited about, and I'm very excited to see Microsoft invest in those teams and give them the resources theoretically to deliver experiences we've never seen before. I know people have a lot of questions about Everwild, but after the experiment with Sea of Thieves from Rare, like I want to believe that that is a relationship built on trust, and
Mhm.
Microsoft is saying, Rare, we respect you. We understand that, this vision needs time and we want to give you the time to deliver on it. And I hope that's the dynamic of Xbox Game Studios, is that they are genuinely empowering these teams to have those tent pole must play experiences that only exist on Xbox, because Sea of Thieves is one. Sea of Thieves is a prime example that I think a lot of people don't really talk about enough when it comes to a promise of what the future of Xbox can be. That is one of the most inventive, creative IP of the last decade, 2 decades, and that's an
There's nothing
Xbox
like it.
exclusive. Yeah.
There's nothing like it. And I'll double down on your idea, and I'll say that Ground is another good example of this.
Hell yeah,
Obsidian took a
Grounded
risk.
owns.
They took a risk, and they gave in its final form, it gives a wonderfully unique product that you don't get in many other places, if any other places. And Sea of Thieves does that. Grounded does that. I'm anxious to see what's kind of some of these other side projects bring. What's Project Mara, and that's not to put expectations on it to be those things, but trust is what allowed those projects to grow. State of Decay ended up to be a fantastic game. And it's even just got a major update recently.
They continue to update it years and
Yeah.
years later.
And it's a great zombie game. Anyone that's listening, go play State of Decay if you've never. It's a really fun game. But there was trust with that team. It launched and they stuck with it. They didn't abandon that group. And I think that is one of Xbox's greatest strengths, not abandoning games. Because had they abandoned Sea of Thieves, we wouldn't have had Jack Sparrow. We wouldn't have had some of the incredible stuff we have now.
Mhm.
Same with Grounded, and same with even the Forza series. Forza Horizon continued to impress and grow and change. And so sticking with their studios, I think, is definitely a strength. I'm anxious to see how the coalition comes about with its next project. There's a lot of really cool, exciting things to happen there. Maybe we find out about them this year, but I'm okay if they sit on some stuff and they just tell me what you got in the early, next few months, and that's it.
Exactly. Keep it focused, because as we know, people want those Xbox games now. So I would prefer, again, they shouldn't and they won't do the 12-month thing again.
Mhm.
They learned some hard lessons there. They got a lot of heat from the community for that. So they're not going to do that again, but I think they are going to focus on the next 4 quarters.
Mhm.
Again, these are the big games you can look forward to. We promised you one big game every quarter. Here's how we're delivering on that. I think this again, I hate saying it because I know it's a meme and I know people are tired of hearing about it, but I think this year it is more likely than it's ever been that they can actually deliver on that. And Phil Spencer alluded to that in the Kind of Funny XCast interview. So again, if Phil Spencer alludes to it and they don't deliver on it,
Mhm.
we'll
But
see.
never
We'll see.
never forget, listeners, Hi-Fi Rush dropped. Incredible reviews. We had no idea it was coming.
Yep.
Pentiment, a niche experience, still very well reviewed. It's great for those that checked them out. Age of Empires is out there doing big things. There's a lot of stuff that kind of sneakily drops. It's just not the
Mhm.
tent pole. So, um, listeners, you're of course listening to this show because you're a tier 2 or 3 patron of XEP. Thank you so much. If you were pointed here, if you're a listener that was pointed here by Miles, because Miles, I'm going to give you the link to share with your people as well. Then I hope you'll be willing to check out XEP. But Miles, for my people that are unaware, one more time, let them know about Chaturdays. Let them know about Candy Corn and your love for horror. Go ahead, man. Give that plug one more time.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to all of the fellow candy corn stands out there. I know there are some haters. Neo Game Spark, if
Neo
you're
Game
listening.
Spark. His fault, by the way. I asked that. Shout out to
Yeah,
Neo.
I saw him on Twitter, and that man is always coming after my candy corn takes, and I won't stand for it. All right, if there's one thing I won't stand for, it's candy corn slander. All right. That being said, if you want to hit me up, you can follow me on Twitter at Miles Dompier. I promise I don't post that much about candy corn unless it's October. Then it's the season, baby. Then it's
Game on.
candy corn takes all day. But yeah, Xbox Chaturdays. If you want to hear me rant about video games for roughly 2 hours every week, we are live at 10 a.m. Pacific time on youtube.com/Miles Dompier, as well as podcast services for those who want to listen after the fact. You can also find my work on Windows Central and IGN as well. And appreciate all you. Appreciate you, Luke. Appreciate everyone who tries to keep the conversations fun despite everything.
Everything. Despite everything. Find the fun, guys. Stay positive, and take care, guys.